Hi, so I wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of concepts that we use in acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, which is a therapy that I use quite a lot. So we talk about being in a state of fusion and defusion. Being in a state of fusion is when we are overwhelmed by all of our thoughts. We're attached to our thoughts. We're listening to them, paying attention to them. For me, fusion looks like this. So if my hand represents all of the thoughts that we might have, I'm not good enough, everything's going wrong, what if my presentation doesn't go well, etc., etc. This is what it's like to be in a state of fusion. We can't see properly, we can't do the things that we want to do, we're completely overwhelmed by all of our worry-based thoughts. Defusion looks a bit more like this. So the thoughts are still there, so we're not trying to get rid of the thoughts, they're still there, they're just not as in your face, they're not as overwhelming as they are when we're in fusion. So how do we get from fusion to defusion? One of the things that I do with clients that I find really helpful, or my clients find really helpful, is it's a 3-step process. So the first step is you call to mind one of your worry-based thoughts. So for example, I'm going to look silly in this video. Call to mind one of your worry-based thoughts and play it in your mind a few times. So I'm going to play the thought, I'm going to look silly in the video. So I was aware, even though we just did that for a couple of seconds, I was aware of my heart beating a little bit faster and a general sense of unease. Now the next stage is to insert the phrase, I'm having the thought, and then your worry-based thought. So I'm going to play in my mind, I'm having the thought, I'm going to look silly in the video. Okay, now the third stage, we insert the phrase, I notice I'm having the thought, and then your thought. So I notice I'm having the thought, and then your worry-based thought. So I'm going to play in my mind, I notice I'm having the thought, I'm going to look silly in the video. Okay, so how was that? So people say to me that they feel more removed from their thought. They feel like they have control over the thought rather than the thought having control of them. They're kind of in more power, or even that they can just tick off that thought and let it go. They've played it a few times, now they can just let it go. So did you experience anything like that? If so, fantastic, you've gone from fusion to defusion. Other diffusion techniques, there are some more wacky ones in ACT. So you notice that you're having a worry-based thought and you play it to a song. So for example, Happy Birthday or Twinkle Twinkle. So take the thought and play it to the tune of Happy Birthday. See what that's like. Take the thought and put it in a character's voice. So the classic one is Homer Simpson or Al Pacino. Again, the thoughts are still there, but they're not as powerful. You're taking the kind of the sting out of them. You're playing around with the thoughts rather than your thoughts kind of playing around with you. Another nice one that you can do, which I think is really helpful at bedtime, so you acknowledge that you've got a worry-based thought there. You take the thought and you put the thought on a computer screen, and then you change the colour of the text. For example, you change the font. You take your mouse and you just drag the words and the letters around the computer screen. Again, thoughts are still there, we're not trying to get rid of them, that can be a losing battle, but we're playing around with the thoughts, we're in control of them, rather than the thoughts being overwhelming and kind of in control of us. So that's fusion to defusion. I hope you found it useful and take good care.